Formula One fans all around the globe, welcome to Paddock Headquarters. Thank you for watching the show. My name is Rory. Today we had the Hungarian Grand Prix. If you're a Red Bull fan, very exciting weekend. Red Bull really owned the day. Both of their cars finished on the podium. Max, just an incredible, dominating, historical year. If you're a Red Bull fan, you are over the top ecstatic. If you are not a Red Bull fan, you are not enjoying them really just crushing everybody at the point. And their drivers, their teams, their pit crews, they are really just in the zone, as we say here in the United States, when an athlete or a team is really just rocking on all cylinders. So Max, he takes the win, even though he doesn't have the pole position. Lewis loses the pole position. He doesn't have a good start. He ends up placing fourth, Hamilton, but really, Max had the race under control from the beginning. His 7th win in a row, the 12th win for the team in a row, breaking McLaren's record, which stood for decades, multiple-year champion, 2 podiums, with Checo taking that 3rd place position. It was really all Red Bull. There's some other stories. This will be a quick video, but I just wanted to give you some highlights. There's some other stories, but really, it's all about Red Bull. There's no way you can minimize the accomplishments that this team has done throughout this season. And, of course, with the Hungarian Grand Prix here today. I mean, Max really looked like he was out for a Sunday afternoon drive. They just make it look so easy. The car is so dominant. Who knows if some of the other teams will be able to catch up or really make it challenging the second half of the season without a mechanical failure or a mistake. But that's part of the success of Red Bull. They really, at least Max on his team side, he does not make mistakes. And he does not leave openings for others to come through. So that was the big story of the day is clearly Red Bull. There's no way you can get around it. The next story, of course, is Lando coming in second, hitting the podium again. McLaren, everything working the way they want it to be. This wasn't their race for second, third, maybe fourth. They didn't anticipate Aston Martin coming out of nowhere, really, but they did. And a really great weekend for McLaren, second week in a row. Oscar Piastri comes in 5th. He's handling his car very much unlike a rookie. He is racing up there near the top now with veterans and champions. Really an excellent job. I know I've said this last video. If you're a McLaren fan, you are just so excited right now at what the team has done. And I'll say it again. At the beginning of the season, they were just so terrible. They were so terrible, and they've completely turned their season around. And if you're a McLaren fan, I'm happy for you. I like Lando. I like Oscar. I love seeing them in the mix. It's going to be a great second half to the season. So, Lewis Hamilton comes in 4th. Oscar Piastri comes in 5th. George Russell, good run for him. Let me just say this about Team Mercedes. Both Mercedes beat both Aston Martins and both Ferraris. So they're doing what they need to get done. Even though Lewis was on the pole and he didn't hit the podium, he was fighting for a podium for a minute. You saw the race. But ultimately, he couldn't get there, and Checo ended up getting that 3rd position on the podium. But really good job to Mercedes and their team this weekend. Could they be better? Yes, of course they could. But they beat their competition, and they're putting space between Aston Martin and Ferrari, those teams behind them. They're obviously not going to catch Red Bull this season. So that's where we are. Good job to George Russell. I think George started like 18th and finished 6th. So really good job for him maneuvering through the traffic, working through the tire strategy, and getting up towards the front of the pack. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz come in 7th and 8th. Just a disappointing week for Ferrari. They need to be really competing for higher positions. Obviously, the Ferrari fans expect that, and they still have some work to do trying to figure out what are some of those issues. Also, Charles got a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, so that was not helpful as well. Finally, Fernando and Lance Stroll finish out 9th and 10th. I'm going to talk about Zhou Guanyu in a second just to finish out this video, but Aston Martin, I'm not sure what has caused their tapering off to such a degree. Even if you're not second or third, they really should be competing for fourth or fifth. And I know different tracks, different car setups, a lot of these things come into play, but they can't have too many more weekends like they've had these last couple where it's really just not extremely competitive. They're just in the mix, despite all the success they've had compared to last season. So they've reset expectations, and now there is an expectation that they be competitive, and they haven't been the last couple races. So we'll see what Aston Martin does for the next race. We're going to Spa next. It should be a great weekend. Finally, last point, the Alfa Romeos. So Alfa Romeo, Zhou Guanyu, the only Chinese driver on the grid. I think he's a great driver. I think he got a little excited. He was starting fifth, and then on lap one, I think, he ends up hitting one of the Alpines. Both of the Alpines get DNFs. They do not finish. A terrible weekend for them. 2 weekends in a row where both of their cars do not finish the race, and that allows McLaren to put a bunch of space between them and Alpine. But I think Zhou Guanyu just got a little excited. He wanted to be aggressive. He wanted to have a great weekend. And, there was some errors early on. He pushed Danny Ricciardo's car, and then Danny Ricciardo's car ran into, I think it was Ocon, one of the Alpines, either Ocon or Gasly. It doesn't matter because they both ended up finishing or leaving the race early with damage to the cars. So, unfortunately for Joe, I've been pulling for him. Both of those Alfa Romeos, even when they're competitive, they're just tractors. The cars are terrible. And I think Zhou Guanyu is better than the team he is on, but we really don't have an opportunity to see it. So keep an eye on him. Alfa Romeo, it was really incredible from yesterday having both cars qualify in the first top 7. And now, they weren't competitive at all during the race. So we'll keep an eye on them and see where they go next week as well. Thank you for watching the program, All Things Formula One. To all the Formula One fans around the globe, I drop a video every single day. Thank you for watching. Paddock Headquarters out.